Welcome everyone to Before They Get Famous. I'm your host, Alana Tyson, and this is a digital show where I'm bringing people's stories and brands and visions to the masses. Make sure you like and subscribe to SnazzyTV because that's where you're going to see this full interview and previous interviews and just a lot more of what's to come for Before They Get Famous. I'll be bringing to you lots of new talents and visions throughout the year. So welcome to my first guest of the year, first guest for 2021, Team Towe, right? Better known as Team Towe, but we have Lee and Daryl Towe. They are a husband and wife couple that run a athletic training service and program in the Alexandria, Virginia area. So we're going to get into your vision, your company, what you guys all do, and how your brand is just exploding. And I only know that because I know you guys from a ways back many years ago when I was in the area, and to see your growth so far has just been amazing. And that's the kind of stories that I like to tell on the show. So before we get into any of that, we are going to do shout outs. Anybody that has seen the show before, you know what our shout outs are all about. So I'm just going to jump right into it. My first shout out for 2021 is actually going to be another husband and wife couple, the owners and developers of Eat Okra. So have you guys heard of this app?
Not at all.
No? Okay. Well,
No, we haven't.
yes, it is an app called Eat Okra, and it is a very, very simple concept. It is finding local Black-owned restaurants.
Nice.
So yeah, Lee, I know from your last video, you said you guys love to travel. Right
Yes.
now, I think that they are just national, so they might hit the international point at some point. But wherever city you might be in, you can pull up your app and search wherever you are. You might be in Detroit or Michigan or wherever you might be, and you can find a local eatery that is Black owned. They started, I think, just in 2016, and they already have 2,600 eateries, and they've got food trucks and bakeries and cafes and all this stuff
Nice.
Wow.
that is Black owned. So go ahead and get that app. I have it on my phone. I love it. When I moved here to San Francisco, that was one of the first things that I did was went to my Eat Okra and found some local places in the area to eat. So that is my shout out for today. You guys have
Sounds
any?
good.
You guys have any?
Uh,
He's gonna
Shut up.
shout out himself. Go ahead.
Stop doing. Don't do not do that.
Conquering, shout out to Conquering Purpose.
No. Shout out to you. Shout out to you for your show.
Oh,
Been watching some of the videos, super amazing, and
oh,
and just
thanks.
going out there and doing it. So shout out to you and your platform. Thank you for
Snaz
having me.
TV gets its first shout out. I love it. Thank you guys so
Hey, there you
much.
go.
Yay. All right. So let's get to talking about you guys. Okay. So I am going to do just a very brief intro about what you guys are all about. What does CTAB mean and what you guys do? So founded in 2013, CTAB, which stands for Cross Training Athletes into Believers, is an athletic organization that trains on skills and development and life skills as well in basketball.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
I will preface that by saying your brand, because you guys are really a brand now, is so much bigger than that. And that B actually is a little bit deeper than what people might think on the surface. And this is the reason why you're on the show, because I thought that, you know, there are not a lot of training organizations out there that do what you guys are doing.
Mhm.
So you both have very long careers in basketball industry, and you
Yep.
guys are like really like the real love in basketball.
Like real life, the real love of basketball.
Facts.
Yes.
The one and
So
only.
yes, and so we're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into kind of how CTAB has evolved over the years. But as I said, that B stands for something a little bit deeper. And if so those are my words. Why don't you guys go ahead and give the people a little bit of what CTAB is all about?
Yeah, you want to go? She always does the lead
I
in.
love
I
it.
do the follow up. Don't
It
act
can be the
brand new
short
to being
version.
the show.
This is what you really get to see. This is behind the scenes of just
Yes.
what a husband and wife business looks like, and when the husband just wants to be annoying today.
I was annoying yesterday too
Yes,
on our
it's a
show.
continuation from our podcast from last night to today. But anyways, CTAB is cross-training athletes into believers, like you said, where we do mentorship through basketball. We train, we have teams. We do everything when it comes to the basketball aspect of the game. But then we also ensure that our students are understanding what happens, essentially when the ball goes flat. What do you do after basketball? What can you do? What preparations can we ensure that we instill in you so that when you finish playing the game, you're prepared for life? And when it comes to the believers, um, to to be transparent, yes, for us, the believers was created out of what we felt like it was God's vision for us. So it's a Christian establishment. However, our believers aspect is bigger and beyond just a faith. It's ensuring that these children believe in something more than what they might see on their phone. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
giving them an understanding. It's giving them empowerment. It's believing in themselves and whatever their dreams and their futures are. So our believers aspect is just a wide range. It's just ensuring that these kids have the strength to maintain a future.
Fantastic. Now, let me ask you this. Do either of you feel through your growing up being in that industry, like growing up, did you feel like that's something that was missing? And that's kind of why you decide when you decided to create CTAB, you decided we're going to kind of put some of that into what we create. Do you feel that that was kind of lacking, or is that lacking in the industry with
I
a lot
believe
of
it
these
is.
training
Yeah.
organizations?
I believe it is. Growing up in youth sports and rec league and high school and even in college and beyond, I played for some coaches who I knew was believers in Christ and big on faith, but they never talked about it.
Mm,
Not even in one-on-ones, they never talked about it. But you can tell by their actions and they led by example. What they stood for, they never said it, right? However, a lot of people have issues with trying to feel like they don't want to compromise what they believe, um, which they shouldn't. But at the same time, they don't want to like lose business or lose money and things like that
right.
because of what people believe.
Right. And you guys have just said, to heck with it. This is what we believe. This is how we want to run our organization. This is how we're going to run our family.
Yeah.
So those things need to be present in whatever we do. And I love
Right.
it. Lee, you were going
Right.
to
And
say
it's
something?
No, I was just gonna piggyback off of what he said. Where a lot of the coaches that we have, played for and stuff, they might not necessarily beyond the belief part. I think it was you never really had too many coaches that really emphasized just giving you encouragement and positivity and what future looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak on behalf of myself. For a lot of years I could play for my father, which is a completely different type of coach.
Right.
But for the coaches that wasn't family oriented, when I went through the struggle of tearing my ACLs, not once but twice, it wasn't from what I know now, and when I help mentor kids through that process now compared to when I went through it, which was kind of brand new to the girls' side of athletics,
Mm-hmm.
there was no, hey, you're going to come back. Hey, let's keep fighting. Don't lose it. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Right.
none of that. So I think that's part of why we find it to be important now to ensure, like we said, that we're instilling that belief and that empowerment in kids, because I think as we grew up, it was kind of a missing thing. Other than, like I said, unless you had
Mhm.
family who was right there,
Right.
you really didn't have coaches who was really giving you that side. It was win, do your job, and be out.
Hmm.
That's
Right.
it. So
Okay. And that has really worked for you guys. I mean, I've seen you grow. What do your, what do a lot of your clients, I mean, I guess the clients that you do have, I'm guessing, do they come looking for that, do you think? Or do some of them just kind of realize, wow, this is really something that I wasn't expecting, but I love
right.
it?
So I think in the beginning that was kind of a we were nervous about putting it out there because
Absolutely.
you know what I mean. I mean, this was essentially, it's a business, but at the same time, it was we don't like hiding who we are. Like, it
Right.
is what it is. So it kind of was like, all right, well, it is what it is. We're gonna have to roll with it. So with
Mm-hmm.
that being said, we just went ahead and jumped in, and we just prayed. You know, to be honest, we just prayed and said, you know, if this is what God has for us, He's gonna make it work out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And since then, it literally been rolling. And we have players who might have a Christian faith, who might not have any faith, who are Muslim, who are
Right.
whatever. We have everybody, Jewish across the board, everything that you can think of, who don't look at that part to make or break them. They actually look at, again, as more of, wow, these people can not only know how to teach us this game, but they're really instilling life that nobody else is doing for my kid outside of my household. So I think that's what
Wow.
really keeps us locked in.
Yeah, and that definitely sets you apart from everything else out there because let's face it, a lot of these organizations, Daryl, just like you said, they're steering away from that because they're fearful of losing business or
Right.
not gaining business or, what have you. So,
Yeah.
so when I say that you guys have evolved, you've evolved based on what I've seen on your website. You guys are doing a lot. Like, so you've got the podcast, you're doing community service, you you've got this building initiative that you're trying to get your own training center.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot going on. So
Mm-hmm.
uh
Absolutely.
so
Along with an infant.
and a family, I was going to say,
Yes.
and so to my audience, to your audience, I feel like that's an important part of your story. It's like, we're not just operating businesses here, we're,
Yeah.
building families and legacies, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And that is not the easiest thing to do,
Right.
especially with all of these outside influences.
Right.
Right.
So how important do you think it is for evolution with CTAB or with any entity for that matter, especially during COVID, like with Love and Basketball, and we'll talk more about that in a second.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys didn't always start out with that podcast, so that's
Mm-mm.
part of your evolution. Like, so how
Mm-hmm.
you started off saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to have this training organization, and.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
how important do you think it is to have all those ands?
I think it's just really timing has a lot to do with it, but I'm a firm believer in if it's aligned with your purpose and your family goals and your calling, I say move on it. Now I'm figuring out like for scheduling and the timing on different projects and stuff like that. But I'm a firm believer in you got to start first and then figure it out along the way, especially if it's aligned with your purpose. If it's not, you don't do it. But
Mm-hmm.
if it even makes sense to even try, then do it. And that's how the podcast came along. In my mind, I know how people look at me and Lee, and they see we a tag team. We husband and wife. We align with a lot of things, so it makes sense to just continue to build on the communication, on the media and stuff like that. Even the book, I see that coming down the line with
Oh,
us both.
nice.
Is it time now? No, maybe after a few seasons of the podcast, okay, then we release that. You know what I mean? So I'm speaking it right now, what I seen before that we will be doing. So it's just things like that.
Yeah.
If you're walking in your alignment, go ahead and do it. Now, of course, some things can be too much. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you got to evaluate and be like, we can't do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Okay.
it's also triggers too, right? So we started off in training, and we're training, we're going hard, and parents are loving us. And so the trigger was, man, y'all just training. Why don't y'all have teams? You need a coach. And it's like,
Hmm.
all right, let's look into that. Cause I've coached prior to even having CTAB and everything like that. So it's like, all right, well, let's see what it looks like with the teams if we do one team. Well, one
Right.
team was the bomb. And so then it was like, oh, y'all need more teams. Cause now you have, we opened it up and now you have 40 kids coming out for one team. Oh, well, we don't
Mhm.
want to get rid of 40 kids. Let's
Right.
make an A and a B team. Well, now the
Right.
A and the B team is evolving to different age groups. So I think it's different triggers that open up certain doors. But again, it comes down to a point of do we continue to add, or
Right.
do we, do we take a time and say, all right, that's not enough? So back to the point with the teams, we got to a point where we had 13 teams at one point.
Wow.
For us, it was great. You know what I mean? It could be great, but at the same, for us personally, as an organization, it was great. But for us personally, it was starting to get saturated as it got more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are not adamant. Like, yeah, great, we could continue to grow like this, but we want quality over quantity.
Exactly.
So
Right.
for us, it just dropped. It again, it was a learned experience. Okay, great, we had 13, and we probably could have went to 20 by that following year. But that next year, it was like, let's stay with 8. I think 8 was a good number. We had
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, well, what's a normal amount of teams that is comfortable for you guys? Because we don't know if 13 is like way, way, way overboard, or
Right.
so 8 was what you would normally be comfortable with.
Right.
Well,
right.
we would do more, but for us, again, it's the quality, and we didn't at that point had quality coaches that we liked at that point. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Okay.
when you don't have the right people connected to you, it can ultimately hurt what you're creating,
Yeah.
you're building. So 8 was the better number because we had 8 coaches, or I think at that point it was about 12 coaches, because there was a couple on each team.
Mm-hmm.
That just was solid, and it was a solid organization. Now, God given, in the future, we get our facility and we able to, go back to growing, and we have quality people invested in what we're doing, and see our vision.
We're going up to
100%.
50.
Yeah, we'll go up to 50.
Oh yeah.
Teams, yes.
Yeah.
But again, like our goal when it comes to our organization is, if you were to close your eyes, so many people want to just be with us, but we're just 2 people, right?
Yeah.
So our goal is, as we hire and bring on new trainers and new coaches, if you were to close your eyes and walk into the gym, you would think it was one of us there. You see what I'm saying? So that's how we train our coaches, our trainers and everything like that. Like, people want us, and we're not saying
you can't
that
train everybody, right?
Build to your personality. Right.
Yeah.
You don't build to your personality, but people want us. So we need to make sure that you guys embody what we give to these people and why they want us.
Right. And to kind of go back to your point too, is when you're saying so many outside forces and things like that, when you, for your listeners that's even thinking about starting a business or getting deep into whatever platform they're trying to do, the outside forces, you got to kind of calm that. Because I know at some point we had so many people around, they didn't mean any harm, but it was too many suggestions, too much leeway and power we gave them, where it caused confusion with us in our household, and decisions like that. So we got to a point where we said, no, we sit to the table first. We don't involve this person and that person. Everybody else,
right.
you got to silence that, because it caused so much confusion. So just being careful when you're building something, them outside forces don't need to be around and have influence.
And that's good. I can't even express how valid that is. And with another guest that I had on the show, we talked about yes men. Or women, but yes men, people around you that are just going to give you the thumbs up, whether your idea makes absolute total nonsense, right. or if it's a good idea, it's just like, yeah, go ahead and do it. It's like, no, you don't need those kind of people around you.
Right.
Those outside influences can be something else. Right. So the Real Love and Basketball podcast, let's talk about that real quick. So before you start, I'm going to tell you this real quick, and this is crazy. So you know how the term 6 degrees of separation, right? Yep. How everybody's related and by 6 people.
Right.
So how about Melinda Michelle, who you had on your show? I think she was the last guest for 2020.
Yes.
So as I was researching you guys and making sure I did all my homework and everything, I come across and I see that interview with Melinda Michelle. Well, how about Melinda Michelle? I read her Surviving Sunday when it was a manuscript.
Yes.
Wow.
And I read it only because now I did not know her. I actually knew her cousin. Her cousin and I actually worked together, and I had just written a book. And her cousin was like, well, you just wrote this book. I've got a cousin that's working on this book. And she really needs some, unbiased advice. And,
Right.
so I was like, I really didn't have the time, but I said, tell her to send me the manuscript. I'll take a
Right.
look at it. I was the very first person to tell her. I loved it, by the way. Loved
Right.
it.
Wow.
So not only did I read the manuscript, but I also bought the finished product once she had actually published it.
Right.
But I was the first person to tell her to change the title. The initial
Oh, really?
title, yes, the initial title that she had was not Surviving Sunday. It was
Wow.
something else, and it wasn't good. And
Right.
like I said, and I'm sure she will appreciate this because Melinda seems
Yeah.
like a real one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told her, I said, that title, this book is the bomb, but that title's got to go.
Right.
And so
Right.
you need to work on that title and you'll have something here. And
Right.
she eventually ended up changing it to Surviving Sunday. And when she
Yeah.
got it published and everything, I bought it and
Wow.
read it. So crazy, right? I had
Yeah, that
no
is crazy.
idea. I had no idea when I reached out to you guys that you guys had her on your show. But in any case, that's just my little
Yeah.
spiel about how
And just
things.
imagine if you was a yes man or yes woman.
Exactly.
Just
It would have
imagine.
been, it would have been a really, really good story. But that title was like, girl, no.
Right.
And we all know the
title.
title sells the book sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that see, you gotta go keep reading that series if you haven't finished it.
I know.
She is my favorite author. Her stuff is the bomb.
I had never read anything involving spiritual warfare before.
Right.
And it was something else. She is just absolutely talented.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree.
So kudos to Melinda. That's my other shout out. How about that?
Yeah, there you
Michelle.
go. Shout out to Melinda Michelle.
Shout out.
Yes,
She a
double
real one.
dose. Yes. So the real love in basketball. Let's talk about this. So
Okay.
you guys are I just love it. Okay. So let's just start there.
Appreciate it.
Your brand is just so refreshing and just so it's not necessarily something new that people haven't seen before in
Right.
terms of basketball training and athletic training, but you guys are seemingly turning it into something that is just completely your own.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the real love in basketball. Tell folks what that is. And, I know that you guys talk about everything under the sun regarding relationships and marriage and all that kind of thing and faith. Talk a little bit about how that came about and what that's been like for you, what this ride has been like with the podcast.
So, I can lead. I'm gonna lead.
Go ahead. You got it.
So so when we got married, well, I would say before we even got married, because we both hooped, it was just kind of a coined phrase for us, like, oh, y'all the next real love in basketball. Y'all, it's literally always been with us because we've played in leagues together, we've played co-ed, we've won championships.
Yeah.
So it's always just been a coined phrase with us. And then, the whole Team Towe was developed early on too, probably like after we had CT.
Yeah.
So we got that actually on our license plate, Team Towe, the real love in basketball.
Oh my. Oh gosh.
So
awesome.
That's during the pandemic. So we've always talked about people have always had conversations with us about, you guys should do a show, you guys should do this and talk about this and that and the third. When the pandemic happened, it was kind of like a moment because we kind of had to pause for probably training for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh no. No, it was about 3 weeks because we ended up going virtual.
Okay.
So yeah, in mid-April. So once we went on a pause, it kind of just got us to sit down and open our juices. Well, how do we stay relevant? How do we continue to, boost CTAB, but still do something in a different lane? And we just developed the real love of basketball. And then literally, so at that point we were staying at my parents' house. So when the whole pandemic thing, so we always go to my parents' house. It's kind of like our getaway because they stay on a nice house and 10 acres and stuff. So that's like our little getaway when we want to get away from here and training and everything. Right. And then the grandkids, so the kids can go.
Oh yeah. That's important.
Right. So we were already down there. And when everything shut down, it was like, oh snap, like
Yeah,
it
it's
was, we were
real.
on lockdown. We were like, so we were like, all right, well, we might as well just stay here for a little while, because we all like, we have our own space, our own room, everything over there. So um we did that, and that's kind of was like, all right, let's try.
Let's
And it
do
Yeah.
it.
started in the basement on
If you see the first video to
Zoom.
now, you be like, oh wow.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
literally started in the
in the
basement
basement
with
on.
two
Nice.
phones on on the chair and
Oh
stuff like that.
Wow.
yeah, we did, because we
Yeah.
started messing around with IG Live first, right?
Yeah,
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 we did IG
yeah.
first, and then we
Wow.
went to Facebook.
But
I love it.
for as the titles, I mean, for as like the categories, whether it's family, whether it's faith, whether it's business, once again, kind of tying into everything that we do on a daily basis without leaving anything out.
Yeah.
Naturally, when you heard love in basketball, you think it's basketball all the time, or you're just talking about relationships all the time. So we're trying to find out everything that'll touch everybody in our generation before and after,
Mm.
um, with different topics that's trending, but also too that's needed, because there's so much negativity out here in social media and into the world. We just want to be a light in our own capacity. So this is a way we're giving back, but at the same time, we're building something that's meaningful for our family and for people that need it.
And being transparent,
Right.
because
Yeah.
the millennials. So technically, I guess we're considered a millennial marriage, and I think it's kind of, being married now is tough, especially in this, our generation and this our, Black community. It's
Yes.
kind of like, if it doesn't work, you out. Like there's
Yeah.
no, whereas when our parents and everybody, they all fought. They, you don't know anything,
Mm-hmm.
but they all lasted like 30, 35, 40, 50 years. And it's
Yeah.
like, all right, now this generation of, well, if you don't like it, you just get out. And it's not,
Right.
that's not
Yeah.
realistic. You know
And
what I mean?
our parents didn't have as many distractions,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Mm-hmm.
I
Very
mean,
true.
I mean, my parents were married 50 something years. And
Mm,
so when you come from that, it's like, yeah, like getting out is not an
an
option,
option,
Right.
right?
Right.
but you're right,
Right.
with these new Gen Zs, I guess,
Yeah.
Gen Zs, and it's there are a lot of distractions, and there's a lot of, I guess that kind of goes with the whole cancel culture too, right? It's like,
Right.
Yeah.
well, I can cancel this, I can cancel you.
Right. Right.
So it's
Right.
just like all kind of melded in together, and it's just like,
Right.
Yeah.
no, like what happened to longevity?
Right.
What happened to trying?
Right. And I
Yeah.
think it's also like, it's because too, back then with our parents, it was more, the man worked, the woman stayed home, took care of the kids. Whereas now you got two people who are married, who are both doing
Yeah.
just as active things.
Mm-hmm.
How do you now manage that and a relationship? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's just different. And it's not that it's a bad thing, it's an evolving thing.
Right.
Women don't just sit home, what do they say?
Cooking
Barefooted and with
barefoot and pregnant.
baby. Yeah, barefoot and pregnant. No, we're out
Right.
doing stuff. So
We
Yeah.
totally are. Yeah.
right. So I think that's another reason why it was important. Like, listen, we not saying, people always think, oh, you guys are so perfect, you're like best friends. It's like, what? Listen, it's a every day.
Yeah, both of your
Every day.
faces.
You hear me? Every.
Both of your faces were like,
Listen.
No,
But
it's
at the
not.
end of the day, it's worth it,
It's
because
worth
it's
it.
so much easier. I mean, it's easy. We both talk about all the time. It's easy to go out here and just holler at the next thing, but to actually find something worth of value to
Yeah.
really work at and keep
Yeah.
it, and be an example, and just
And
change curses and generations to come. Like,
right.
that's
That's
it makes
priceless.
it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's priceless, and
Absolutely.
it also makes it more fun and like adventurous. Like,
Mhm.
I could be
Yeah.
out. You could be out here doing anything with every Tom,
Right?
Dick, and Harry.
Because that would be
But
the norm, right?
right,
Right. Right.
exactly,
For sure.
right. But this is like, oh, okay. Now I got to really work at this,
And
and I
work
want
at
it to
this.
last. And for us, we don't like failure, so we're not gonna fail at this thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Mm-hmm.
we always, or like I always say, only way out of this daggone thing is 6 feet under. So
See,
I love it.
we bring balance to the show, yo.
Daryl said, wait a minute now. You ain't have to go there.
right,
Right, exactly.
So
the thing for me is,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
the thing for me is too, like everybody in my family is divorced. There's
Mm-hmm.
probably a handful of people that I know probably about 3 or 4 marriages that's lasting, and probably half of those are, in toxic relationships. So I always
Yeah.
want to break the cycle and do something different and change the generation.
Yeah.
So
For
that's
the
what
sake of our little ones,
Right.
for
right?
sure.
For the sake of our little ones. I have 2 boys as well. And,
Mhm.
Mhm.
what they see in our home is critical to their, critical to their survival and
Right.
their, coming up in
Right.
this crazy world,
Yeah, for
Right.
you
sure.
know.
100%. Yep.
So on that same vein of marriage and running a business, I wanted to kind of touch on that just a little bit more. So with some very specific questions about, do you find it challenging, or what are some of the challenges with being a married couple and making business decisions?
So I think it's balance, right? I think it's having the important thing is having good communication.
Yeah.
And I think over the years, that's how we got to where we are today. Because it was definitely in the beginning, it was hot. Because he's a visionary. He's a visionary. I'm the executioner. So he envisioned something literally on a daily basis, like 10 new ideas daily. And if it was up to him, he would execute all 10 with no vision on how it's going to, like, no execution
Start
pattern,
and do
anything.
everything else later.
Right. So whereas I'm like, wait, like,
Wait.
what does this look like? What is it going to cost? How will it
Yeah.
maintain? So in the beginning, that kind of was where we bumped heads a lot,
Mm.
because he just wanted to go, and I'm like, no, we gotta, dial back and look at that. But then we came to an understanding of what each of us brought to the table, and we're able to compromise. Okay, this is a great idea. Let's sit down
Yes.
and see how do we actually execute it. And once we go through a plan, does it make sense to move forward, or do we table it for another time?
Right. But
Yeah.
that's a really, really good mix to have. Like, could you imagine if you were both visionaries? Y'all would be
Right.
getting
Yeah.
nothing done.
Right.
Be all over the place.
100%.
Just be
100%.
dreamers out here.
Yeah,
Just
Right.
yeah,
I would love to do this, or I would love to do that, and just
right.
Right.
pipe dreams.
Right.
That's a
Yeah,
really good. That's a really good balance right there,
Yeah.
yeah.
to be able
And
to have someone who can execute and the other person that can come up with the ideas.
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
a
All
lot of people
right.
that I see that's successful, they have that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times. And I got partners and homeboys that are in relationships, or whether they're married or just seeing somebody for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to do business and not working, and they're getting frustrated. And they
Mm-hmm.
always say, "Man, I envy you, man. You got somebody that's on your team that's gonna help you, and y'all meshing together." So I don't take that for granted. I sit back and look like, yeah, you're right. Because if I didn't have her, I'd still be moving, but I don't think I'd be moving at the pace I am, which is fast right now,
Right.
and not all over the place. So a lot of people that's successful, they really got somebody in their corner who's opposite of them, that's got their back and not a yes man, and going to stretch them and challenge them to be their best self.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm learning as I go through this, that this whole idea of entrepreneurship and building something bigger than me, that team, and it's crazy that you guys have that in your in your name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You guys go by Team Tao. That is so critical. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people who are dreamers and doers, and the young people out here who are creators, it kind of starts with having a team
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that can really, like you guys, that are balanced. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's bringing ideas to the table, and somebody that's actually kind of making things happen.
Yeah.
So that team is critical, even
I
if
mean,
it's just a team of two.
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, like, we can't do it by ourselves. I mean,
Right.
God created us to have helpmates. He created us not to be alone. So I hear people, watching stuff. People say, "Oh, I was self-made," but it's like,
Mm.
somebody
Oh.
helped you
Oh
get to
yeah.
that. Whether it was that somebody who gave you the opportunity to even become where you're at right now, but somebody had to help you get to where you are today. So nobody
Mhm.
is honestly self-made. It
So,
takes more than
yeah.
one.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. And
I
that's
think
why
the
I
other
love. I'm sorry, Daryl. Go ahead.
I think the other thing is too is just growing up in sports, and whether you play at the elite level in in college or in pro. I just pray that a lot of young kids get an opportunity to play on some type of team because it always sports to me is life. Like, so if you can be a team player on a team and understand that concept, it will transfer over into your career, your entrepreneurship. Like literally, me and my boys, we talk about all the time. Like it's gonna be one time in business where I close the deal. Okay, that's me dropping 30 points. And my guys that's with me in that meeting, they may not talk as much because I have the lead on this particular person and they understand it. Oh, D, go ahead and get your 30. I go ahead and get the rebounds, that type of thing. So we always correlate, and it's pretty cool to kind of see that. So I just pray a lot of young kids just get opportunity to play at some point to help that get them to the next level in their career.
Yeah, I think team sports, there's a lot to be said about, individual sports and things, but I think, at least in my experience, team sports is so useful for kids at a young age. It teaches so much. It's really just not about the game. And that's any team sport. You could be looking at football, basketball, soccer. There's so many life lessons that can be learned in team sports. So thank you guys for for having CTAB. For the youth out there, in Virginia that come to you. So, so we talked a little bit about the Daryl. You wrote on a blog, and the title of that article was "When the Ball Falls Flat," right? When the ball goes flat. And Lee, you kind of prefaced it a little bit, so I'm not going to get into too much of that. But in terms of, in that article, basically was talking about finding your purpose, right? After whatever that might be, whether it's basketball or whether it's, whether it's graduating from college, right? What is your purpose? Do you feel that you guys have found your purpose? Do you feel like CTAB is it for you guys?
Hands down. I mean, I don't think CTAB is the. I think that was the foundation to get us rolling, and the vehicle to get us started. But everything that we're doing and that we see down the pipeline is our purpose. Like hands down, we done found it. And that's what conquering purpose come from. It's not conquered, it's conquering, because we're forever figuring this thing out on our journey of life. So we're conquering small little pieces at once. But as long as we see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's a game changer to recognize that.
And you got to remember your purpose. I think some people get caught up under thinking that their purpose is just one thing. Whereas for us, we feel like your purpose is whatever the season is. So your purpose in this season could be to be a mother, right? Focus on your motherhood, focus on raising your children. Your next purpose in the next season could be now using those motherly skills that you have developed over the years to now mentor the next women who might be struggling on what it looks like to be a mom and not have the guidance that they needed to become a mom. So now your purpose has shifted, kind of still on the same line, but now it's shifted to a different aspect of life. So I think everybody has a purpose, but again, it's not always just one dimensional. It's going to have shifts in the season depending on your season.
Right. Ebbs and flows, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps everything up. I will just say to the audience, make sure you check these guys out. If you're in the Virginia area, if you're in the Northern Virginia area, you have access to all this awesomeness. But if you're not, you can still check out at The Real Love and Basketball on their Facebook podcast. Are you guys going to be? Is the podcast available on lots of different streaming platforms? Is it right now Facebook only?
Right now it's Facebook and YouTube. And YouTube. But
okay.
Maybe like by the 5th episode, we'll start putting it on Anchor and Spotify and things like that for audio.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That's what we want to see. I'm going to be looking.
She know this.
So that's another one of them visions. See what I'm saying?
I mean, it's easy to do, I mean, timing, right? So
Lee said, here we go. We got another thing on the list now.
All right.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for sitting down with Before They Get Famous. We are looking for so much more from you guys in 2021.
We appreciate you.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.